I'm late.
No, you got here right on time.
No, I'm late.
It's the Late Show.
Sorry I'm late.
You're too late!
The wizard is never late.
Can I help you?
Yeah, I'm gonna see the show.
But not to come late. You are late.
You're late, man. Always late, huh?
The hour grows late.
You're late. I'm not paying for those.
But is he already too late to save his friends?
You're too late.
And I'm like, dude.
You're not going from Mary Poppins to a savage killer.
I would say yes, it lives up to the hype. What little hype I had for it was pretty damn good.
Jake, are you usually paying 76% of your taxes?
Yeah, because I'm not a big fan of national security and I don't remember the other examples.
I don't remember the other examples either.
Hey, welcome to Late to the Show podcast with John and Jake. This week we're talking about Stranger Things. We're the 1 out of 1 million movie podcasts on the internet, but we're diamonds in the rough.
Yes, please
Maybe.
listen to us.
Thank you,
Nick,
Andrew
and apparently now
Laudacina.
Andrew.
And yeah, Nick Rosenblum.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, Nick Rosenblum, Andrew Laudacina. Not Nick and Andrew Laudacina.
Nick
So
doesn't
thanks,
listen to
Nick.
this.
Though, Nick, if you do listen, thanks for being on that one time. I'll let you figure out which Nick I'm talking to.
He actually did listen to the podcast.
That he was on?
Yes.
Jesus Christ.
I'm sorry. I'm eating food, and so is John.
Yeah,
John's
I'm eating
snacking
combos.
a noisy food. Now, I meant the bag, but thanks for the ASMR. Yeah, that's enough of that.
Anyway.
And but Nick did listen to the podcast, the Superman one, and he said it was really fun listening to it on YouTube with the closed captions that are auto-generated for it. So and I listened to it a little bit. It doesn't do a good job. It just fucks up a lot of stupid shit.
Oh, I need to check this out.
He said it's a good time listening to it with the closed captions on. So I wonder if he was at work and was just like watching the closed captions and then trying to piece together what the story was. But it was probably an even more interesting story than a Nicolas Cage Superman directed by Tim Burton.
I don't know. But that's not what we're talking about today.
Today, we are talking about Stranger Than Fiction, the Will Ferrell dramedy from 2006. Little people know about it. Few people know about it, but
go.
I'm sure there are some little people who do know about it.
From what I understand, Jake, this is your favorite movie ever?
So I actually talked about this movie recently on another podcast, the podcast being The Scene That Got You with Dylan Hatcher. And and then I figured, hey, I'm not too into effort. Why don't we cop this movie also and do it for our podcast?
Perfect.
So here's the phoning it in. Today we're talking about Stranger Than Fiction.
Which, back to the regularly scheduled way this podcast works, I have not seen before this.
Ah, yes. A lot of people haven't seen this movie, though. Like, in film school, when you do all the orientation, say something about yourself, or say your favorite movie. I would say this one, and I would get no reaction from the audience. Everyone else says Jaws, and they go, ooh, with the shark, or they'll do the fucking, in the crowd. It's like, all right. I do Stranger Than Fiction, and everyone just gets quiet. So, that feels good.
Yeah, I bet.
But
also brave of them for saying fucking Jaws is their favorite movie, but
dude, it was the first time that Vertigo zoom in or dolly in had ever been done.
the Vertigo dolly zoom in.
Yeah.
First time it ever happened was in Jaws.
No, that's just
not
what
in
it's
Vertigo.
known for. That's what it was known for. It's how it got taught to me in film history.
See, and when I learned about it, and
You learned about it in Vertigo?
Yeah, I learned about it from Vertigo.
I haven't seen Vertigo, so I didn't know they did it.
It's why it's called Vertigo.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
I just thought it's like because it kind of gives you that weird Vertigo feeling, but that makes sense that it was done in Vertigo.
Yeah, no. Hitchcock used that a lot in that movie. But again, that's not what we're talking about today. We keep getting off track already.
You know what? I don't even think they use it once in Stranger Than Fiction, if
Probably
I'm being honest
not.
with you.
No, I don't think so.
All right. But yes, like you said, this is one of my favorite movies. In fact, after I watched it with Dylan for the podcast, I watched it again with Kate, and I kind of felt like watching it again, but I couldn't bring myself to watch it 3 times.
Why not?
Because Will Ferrell doesn't like things being told to him 3 times in Austin Powers 2.
Fair point. Now, since you're the person who's seen it, would you like to describe what this movie's about?
Yeah. Just in case I drop some stupid ass spoilers. Spoiler alert. This movie came out in 2006.
It's 13 years old. If you haven't seen it by now, you're just close your ears for a little bit. We'll tell you when to come back.
It's not too late to see it though. Go watch it. It's
Pause
still
this.
good. Yeah, I think I was told it's also free on Vudu and some other places. By
I
the way,
paid $4 for it on Amazon.
10
Or rent
on
it.
Blu-ray. I
Or
didn't
$3.
own it.
$3.
One of my favorite movies. I never owned it. So,
Anyways, what's it about?
the plot to Stranger Than Fiction is so Will Ferrell is the main character. He plays a character named Harold Crick, and one day, so he's an accountant or no IRS agent.
He's an IRS
Agent. He's very much about numbers, very routine, strict way of living his life, kind of very much a loner, eats alone, gets up alone, goes to sleep alone. In that order, or
Yes.
not. But one day he notices while brushing all 32 of his teeth 74 times, 78 times?
I think 78.
He notices that someone is narrating his life to him. He can hear a narration of his life. And he's trying to figure out like where it's coming from. He's asking other people if they hear a voice when he's doing certain things like filing at work, and his friend Dave just really doesn't get it. Actually reports him to human resources.
Yeah.
And he just kind of thinks there's something off. He may be crazy. He's not sure. However, one day while waiting for the bus, he is told that when his watch turns off and he resets it, that this simple, innocuous task will lead to his untimely death.
Imminent death.
Imminent death, not untimely. Imminent death. And that freaks him out big time. So that's when he starts going to a therapist who tells him he has schizophrenia, which he refuses that he has. So instead, he goes
The
to a
voice isn't
literary
telling
expert.
him to do stuff. It's telling him about stuff he's already done.
Voiced by the lady who looks like Edna Mode from The Incredibles.
That's the therapist.
Yeah, she very much looks like Edna Mode.
Oh, I was saying that's not the narrator is not.
Oh,
Looks
right, no.
like Edna Mode.
For anyone who's interested, the narrator is Emma Thompson, who was also Mrs. Potts in the live-action Beauty and the Beast. But, and she has an interesting side story, too, with Queen Latifah.
Yes.
So there's actually several side stories in this. There's the story with Harold, first of all. There's the story with the author of the book being written about Harold, who is also the narrator in his mind that he can hear.
Yep.
Which is played by Emma Thompson. There's the side story with the lady driving the bus and the little boy on the bike.
Yep.
Those two stories are very much on the side. They just kind of come in and out of the film, and you kind of wonder how they're playing into it. You kind of see them in daydreams of different characters, or actually of the author even more so. But they exist. And so it just kind of leads through Will Ferrell trying to figure out how to prevent his death while realizing he's not really living his life.
Yes.
Right. And that kind of comes into play when he starts talking to Dustin Hoffman, the literary expert.
And when he starts auditing Maggie Gyllenhaal's character.
Anna Pascal.
Yes.
Yeah. And then he realizes, well, he's attracted to her from the beginning, but let's just say it's an odd couple situation.
Yes, she very much does not like him.
Well, that and also their just personalities are very different. She's a messy type of person who likes to do things her own way, and Harold is,
And stick it to the man.
Yeah, she is very stick it to the man, and Harold is the man. He does everything by routine and by numbers and by what he believes to be right.
Yes.
Not really thinking about what he wants or what makes him happy. He just is going through the motions of life.
Because this is what I'm supposed to do, so I'm just going to do it.
And I'll just let you, I'll just ask you, what did you think of the movie?
I really enjoyed it. Again, as I think I mentioned in the last podcast or afterwards or something, that this movie is first off a lot more recent than I thought it was, because when I started working 2 years after it came out. I was already seeing it like in the bargain bin at the grocery store that I worked at. So I was thinking, first off, thought it was older than it was. And second off, like, I just kind of had no interest in it. Like, it was an interesting premise, I'll say, but I was just like, don't think I want to watch it, though. But yeah, no, after watching, I really enjoyed it. I wasn't really sure how it was going to go, how it was going to play out or anything like that. Beyond the obvious, like, his life is being narrated because he's a character in a book that's being written. And yeah, it was really interesting seeing the intersection between that and the author and like all the little stories and just how it all ended up kind of meshing and coming together at the end. I thought it was a really nice story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are there any kind of because this movie, it plays a lot into literature and literary devices and like, especially because it's about a character in a book, but his actual life, and you have to figure out where the parallels are and how he's kind of creating his own story, even though he's breaking away from how he was, but that's what was written about him anyway.
That's what's being written about him.
Were there any kind of certain maybe metaphors you picked up on that moves the plot of the movie forward? Because now watching it so many times, there's some things I started to pick up on where the first time I watched it, I just liked the story. But now I pick up on some of the more technical things that move the story along that really make it interesting.
Yeah, I think this is one that would definitely benefit from an extra watch or two to pick up on things like that, because I didn't immediately pick up on them when I watched it the first time, or the only time right now. No, it was like, and I really kind of liked it, and I thought it was really interesting, like when the literary professor played by Dustin Hoffman was, like the 26 questions. Like, I know these are going to sound silly. Just
Your
answer them.
candor is paramount.
Were you stitched together from other dead bodies? This is like one of the first questions he asks him.
Aren't you relieved to know that you're not a golem? Yes, I am relieved to know that I am not a golem. All right. Do you have any magical powers?
And just kind of like how that, and with how the payoff of the story ends up, what the payoff of the story is, kind of, it makes it interesting too, thinking back that he was even asking him those questions, if you know what I mean. Again, not seeking to spoil it too much for a 13-year-old movie, but...
Well, it's funny because, I mean, it sounds ridiculous, but if you look at it through the eyes of Dustin Hoffman's character at that point, none of those questions are ridiculous. You're talking to a man who very well could be crazy. Yeah. So why not ask any of these questions?
Yeah.
Who knows what answer he could give? Oh, yeah, I've killed 13 people. Or, what?
Now you're in an awkward conversation with a serial killer.
Tom Segura credited. We don't want to steal any of your jokes. But on Dylan's podcast, The Scene That Got You, I said the scene that got me in that was probably the scene where he drops off bags of quote-unquote flowers to Anna Pascal. Mm-hmm. But having rewatched it again, and the podcast is called The Scene That Got You, but I still was stupid and felt like I was put on the spot because I couldn't think of like a really big scene that got me, even though I do really like that scene. But one I really like is after Harold is told that his imminent death is upon him, he goes back to his apartment and he's trying to engage the voice again so he can learn more. He's freaked out. He's terrified. Yeah. And he starts breaking everything in his apartment. He's looking around for the voice. He's trying to figure out if there's like cameras watching him or anything.
And he's narrating it as he goes.
Right. Well, one of the funnier parts is where he grabs the lamp. Harold furiously shook the hell out of his lamp. And then he started breaking it and kicking it. But the scene where he rips all the clothes out of his closet and he looks at the mirror and he's yelling, "Say something!" Mm. I really like that scene because it's...
When it cuts from the wide of him and like him and his reflection to just the reflection.
Right, where he finally looks at himself in the mirror because all of the things he does has been called out to his face. It's been told to him, this is what you're doing. and you're gonna die. It's the culmination of all of that. Is that right? Culmination? All right. All of that hits him in that moment while he's looking at himself, and he realizes he's not happy. He's gonna die. He's just living his life, blase blah, going through the motions.
Yeah.
And I really like that scene because I think that's the big moment. Well, I mean, obviously he's been trying to figure out what's happening from that point, but that's at the point where he starts going out and trying to figure out what's going on with him.
Yeah.
And that's kind of a big point for a lot of people when they're about to, when they become self-aware and they're about to make serious life changes for themselves if they live an unhappy life, where you kind of look at yourself in the mirror, quote unquote, and decide to do something about it. Yeah. And I really like that part of the movie.
Yeah, that was, I would honestly say, one of my favorite moments, and I know it's kind of big, but it was like, it really kind of marked the start of his transition when he finally decided he was going to learn how to play the guitar. Mm-hmm. And he was at the guitar shop, and the narrator was narrating the guitars he saw and everything, right. And it finally it took him a while to find the guitar that he felt was right for him. Mm-hmm. I really liked that scene because like that was like, it was self-reflective. It was, again, it was really kind of that turning point. At this point, he had moved in or was bunking with his friend while his apartment was being repaired. And it just kind of was like really that turning point where he's decided it's like, I'm going to start doing stuff for myself, for making myself happy.
Right.
Was that bit in the guitar shop.
Right. And this movie really doesn't delve in too deep into Harold's backstory. It just kind of starts when he's probably in his like late 30s or something. And he's been an IRS agent for a long time. But what you can kind of grab from it is maybe that, like, as a child, his dreams were kind of put on hold for whatever reason. He's never, like, been super adventurous, or he's never really wanted to tackle anything outside the realm of what he thought could be possible. Mm. And that's kind of what you get out of what's informed him to be the way he is now. And, so I kind of like the idea that it takes him a minute to break him down to say, well, I've always kind of wanted to play the guitar. And I think that's a really interesting thing that he's never even tried to do, which most people do try to do. But I don't know. Since you don't get any like actual concrete information about what his childhood was like, that's kind of the childhood I build in my mind, that his parents were very much like, don't even worry about that. That's a pipe dream of anything. I mean, there's no point in doing anything creative or whatever. You just be a fucking auditor or an accountant, because that's a solid job and that's what you're going to need in this world to survive.
Exactly. That's going off of that. That's definitely more what I felt was like, it was less that he was told, don't be creative. It was more that it was forced down the path of, you got to get the good grades. You've got to go to college. You have to get a job that pays well. You know, these are the things that equal a good life.
Right.
Which is where, you know, how he ends up living alone, being so meticulous about everything, living everything according to his wristwatch.
Right. By the way, do you normally say wristwatch, or are you saying it because that's the way
because
an
that's
English person says wristwatch?
Because that's how it was said in the movie a bunch. No, I would normally just say watch.
Like anyone carries a fucking pocket watch anymore. A watch just means a wristwatch. I just think it's funny because I do that too.
Yeah.
I'll pick up on someone saying it like that, and then I'll start saying it like that. But, yeah. I just, like I said, out of all the scenes that got me, the Anna Pascal Flowers one is a great one. But the one where he looks at himself in the mirror and he notices, or not notices, but he kind of comes to the realization that he is living an unhappy life, and he doesn't like, or he's afraid of his death. Yeah. Because now he's probably never even thought about it, but now it's been literally told to him, you're going to die. Imminently. You don't even know when it's going to happen.
Oh, God, that was another line I really liked when Dustin Hoffman wants to reschedule. He's like, all right, come back and meet me on Friday. No, she said imminent. You could be dead by Friday. Come in tomorrow.
Yeah. 10 seconds ago, you said you weren't even going to help me. It's been a very revealing 10 seconds, Harold. But, yeah, Dustin Hoffman's character is great in this movie. Yes. He's really funny. I even like some of the editing choices in this movie, just to kind of break away from what I was talking about before. But you notice it when Dustin Hoffman's character is introduced. He's very fast-paced. He's trying to get as much information from Harold as possible. Mm-hmm. And he's talking quick. He's asking Harold a lot of questions. And you notice that with all the cuts that they do very frequent cuts during his scenes, or at least during that first scene where he's introduced. And also through certain choices where his character puts down coffee and he's getting it refilled at that little coffee machine. Yeah. And he pulls the coffee away before it's even done refilling. Just certain things like that I think are really interesting.
Yeah. No,
just to build upon his character. This coming from a guy who's trying to write a short film.
Yeah. Well, and that's the sort of stuff that I did not pick up on either the first time through, but I did like how quick he was at assessing Harold too, though. Like, he knew he was counting his steps, he knew he was counting the stairs and everything, and Harold kept telling him he wasn't, but he's like, okay.
Well, so speaking of editing technique and that, you notice how there's a lot of like the graph lines and numbers constantly flowing on screen, at least at the beginning of the movie. As the movie progresses, they start to fade away because they stop being as important to Harold. However, you don't see that during the scene where they're walking up the stairs and they're first talking. Mm-hmm. But then once his name is Jules. Well, Dustin Hoffman anyway. Yeah. When Dustin Hoffman asks him, were you counting the stairs out there? Harold's like, no, I wasn't. And then he asks him, he puts his hand out and starts waving for his coffee. And then Harold moves the coffee towards him. And then the numbers come back onto screen. And then he starts measuring the soaps and the soap dispensers again also. Yep. So it's kind of like it reminded Harold that he does count numbers. Or maybe it's like some kind of weird self-conscious thing where he feels it's being expected of him. So then his brain starts working it again. Yeah. So that's another good technique that really does put you in Harold's perspective anyway.
Well, I mean, if we're going off of that, again, having only seen it the one time, I didn't sit and really try to analyze it. I just tried to absorb the movie as it was coming at me. Mm-hmm. Because between him finding out about his death and I suppose that scene would have been the next time those started happening again, you could tell that Harold was far more preoccupied with the fact that he was about to die than worrying about having to count those things. It's like, I've got to figure out what the fuck is going on.
Right. Because then it's really where you see the breakdown of the character that he's introduced as. Yeah. Because he's yelling and screaming and stuff. As opposed to when he's first introduced, he's very mild-mannered, and he's just kind of is quick to brush off the voice that he's hearing.
Well, and the narrator even says he's a man of few words.
Yeah. Actually, the numbers thing where it kind of it comes back to him like he's reminded of it, and you start seeing it on screen again. I didn't even notice that either. Dylan told me about that. So then when I rewatched it after that, I looked for it, and sure enough, that's how it happened. Yeah. Which I hadn't noticed before, but I thought was pretty interesting. It's just a good way to show perspective, I think.
Yeah. And the character's kind of mental state.
Right. And yeah, like you said, where he's more preoccupied with what's happening to him as opposed to the world around him.
Yeah. Because they come back in force when he's auditing
Anna
Pascal.
If it's easier for you, you can say the actors' names.
Yeah,
I've seen the movie more times, so I know.
Yeah.
Except for fucking Dustin Hoffman's name. It's Professor...
We're on IMDb. You want to just scroll down?
All right. It's Professor H. What the fuck?
What the hell is it?
These are in weird order. How is Dustin Hoffman not within the first 20?
Oh, it's the way this works, actually, from what I understand, is based on search on IMDb.
Jules Hilbert, that's what his name is. Are you telling me Dustin Hoffman doesn't get searched as often as Helen Young, bakery customer number 1?
Again, this is just what I understood at one point to be how IMDb did it, all right?
All right. Well, Jules Hilbert, that's Dustin Hoffman's name in the movie. Professor Hilbert is what he's mostly called.
Yep. I lost my fucking train of thought. When the graphics start coming back in force, when he's back in the zone of, auditing and like he's like, this is my lane, this is what I know.
Right.
But really, I think that's about one of the last times you really see those graphics. Because then right after that scene is when she offers him the cookie and then, like, tries to give him the cookies as a gift, but then he wants to buy them from her because he can't as an IRS auditor.
Right. Like, and then you actually start seeing the numbers transition to, instead of actually counting numbers, they start turning into her name instead, because that's what's on his mind. Did you notice that?
No.
When he's brushing his teeth, it starts counting, and then it turns to symbols, and then it spells out Anna instead. I think it's after they're on the bus together, and he apologizes for looking at her boobs. And he has kind of like a little flirty moment with her. Do you remember that scene?
Yeah. Because I think I remember seeing her name pop up in one of the graphics.
Yeah. He starts brushing his teeth at that point because he's thinking, oh, maybe there's something here. Maybe there's also another part of the movie where Jules Hilbert tells Harold that his life is either a comedy or a tragedy. Like the story of his life that's being narrated to him. So he needs to find out if it's a tragedy, he's going to die, or if it's a comedy, he gets hitched. So he kind of starts really investing his time in Anna first to maybe save his life, and maybe he can turn this around into a love story.
Yep.
Because he has this kind of like flirty moment with her on the bus where he does apologize to her for the way he's behaved and for the fact that he's auditing the shit out of her.
Yeah. But also, I found it interesting because I feel like, because Harold is obviously more of a mathematic kind of guy, not so much the language arts type of guy. And despite the fact that, like, you know, he described Professor Hilbert, Professor Hoffman described, it's like, you know, you're going to meet somebody who hates you, and then it's all going to work out great in the end. Right. And it's like, but you look at the notebook where it was tallying comedy or tragedy, it's like there was 3 ticks to comedy, and he filled the entire page of tragedy.
Right.
Despite the fact that he was literally just told, that person's gonna hate you. Mm-hmm. And like, because I remember the way when I took some like English class in high school or some shit, the way comedy versus tragedy was explained to me was comedy is low fortune to high fortune, tragedy is high fortune to low fortune. Mm-hmm. So I mean, he's starting at kind of the low fortune spot. He knows he's gonna die. He has to audit this person who hates him and all this stuff. So like, the only direction he was supposed to be able to go would have been up.
Right, but in his mind, tragedy is just being dead. Because he never was really self-aware that his life was, you know, boring or maybe considered not a good life.
Yeah.
Until he's being told that he's going to die. So his worst nightmare is just death.
Yep.
So he does think that tragedy is way downhill for him.
Yeah, that's true. Which
is interesting that he doesn't have the life perspective to say, oh, like, it can get way better than this. Which I also thought was funny because Hilbert tells him, your best life could maybe be eating pancakes all day if you wanted to. Yeah. He's like, who would choose pancakes over life? And he's like, I think you're ignoring the fact that that's based on the quality of the pancakes. So it's the quality of life, not just the fact that you have life.
Yes, quality over quantity.
Correctamundo.
As Fluffy once said in one of his comedy specials, it's like when he was talking about having to lose weight, someone's like, "Don't you want to, you know, live till you're 80?" And he's like, "Not if I can't eat cake."
I lost the train of thought I was on getting to the. No, it wasn't you. Getting to the comedy tragedy thing. Let's kind of progress through the movie a little bit. We've talked about Dustin Hoffman's character. What do you think of Maggie Gyllenhaal's character in this movie?
She was fine. The movie didn't focus on her as much as like I thought it was going to at the beginning. It was a lot more Dustin Hoffman in that movie, I felt, than I did Maggie Gyllenhaal. So.
Oh, really?
That's how I felt, anyways. I thought I saw Professor Hilbert way more. But no, I thought she was a good foil for Will Ferrell. Holy shit, I couldn't remember his name.
Curly-haired guy.
Yeah, that
yells really loud in all of his
Elf.
movies now. Buddy the Elf. Anyone remember him?
Anyways, I thought you made a good foil for Will Ferrell's character. Yeah, I mean, I think she was fine. I think she was good in the role. But I felt the movie didn't do as much with her as probably it did. It was just how I felt on my first pass through. I'm just like, oh, we're seeing not a lot of Maggie Gyllenhaal in this for being the love interest of the story.
Right. Well, I like how at first it's his catalyst for change, where he kind of looks at her as maybe like a get out of jail free card in a way. He's like, maybe if I can turn this into me and her getting together, my life will be a comedy and I won't die.
Yeah.
Where he was like kind of at first he just noticed that he was sexually attracted to her until but it wasn't until he realized like a desire he's always had was maybe to play guitar. That's when his life really started to change, like you said earlier.
Yeah.
So I like how she kind of stops being his reason for changing, and she kind of becomes more of
part of the change.
Right, exactly. Because you shouldn't just be with someone just because you think they're going to make your life better.
Yes.
I mean, that's one reason to be with someone, but that shouldn't be the only reason.
Yeah. Well, especially a complete stranger, basically.
Right. So once he's changed his life and he's kind of turned his life into a life worth living, one that he enjoys, he kind of knows what it takes to spend time with someone and enjoy that time with someone.
Yes.
And not piss them off every day, every minute of the day.
Yeah, because the first time, or the flower scene was after he had started playing the guitar.
Right. It was after the montage of his life getting better, or him living a life he wanted to.
Yeah, because again, he was living with his friend, and like the narrator said, it's like for the first time in his life, there was somebody, even if it was just a roommate, there was somebody who was
he never ate alone again.
Yeah, he didn't eat alone again. He didn't wake up alone again or anything like that.
Not that they slept in the same bed, but they were in the same apartment.
Yes. That's why I prefaced with even if it's just a roommate, because I was going to get to the didn't wake up alone again.
Right. He had some communal interaction with people outside of just going to an office that he hates.
Yes. Also, real quick, complete aside from all of that, the two guys from the Sonic commercial were in this.
Because I realized this forever, like not forever ago, like maybe 5 years ago, which was still like 11 years after the movie came out.
Yeah, I was like, when they first were there, I'm like, why are they so fucking familiar? And then about halfway through, I'm like, they're the guys from the Sonic commercial.
And they're always pictured together. There's not one without the other, which is even weirder.
Yeah.
I kind of looked it up a little bit. I didn't dive too deep into it. They're like an improv duo. So I'm wondering if they knew Will Ferrell from back in the day, because Will Ferrell was an improv guy. I mean, obviously from Saturday Night Live.
Yeah.
But he was Groundlings. I don't know if maybe they were Groundlings out in L.A.
No idea.
So I don't know if that's why they're in the movie, but I mean, they're a duo, so apparently there's not one without the other.
I was going to say, it explains why they're in shit together all the time.
Except the dude with black hair. He was not in the movie Get Hard with Will Ferrell, but the other guy was in Get Hard with Will Ferrell. He played a gay guy who tried to get Will Ferrell to suck his dick in the bathroom, I think. And then he started talking to Kevin Hart over Skype a lot.
Okay. I didn't see Get Hard.
A small little plot to the movie, but he's in that movie. The blonde guy from the Sonic commercials, everybody. The blonde guy who's losing his hair.
Yes.
Yeah.
Anyways.
It did blow my mind that they were in the movie.
Yeah.
And then they're also waiting for the bus when Harold is told that he's going to die. So he's yelling into the sky. One quick thing. That was another part of the movie I liked. Why do you keep looking behind me? Is there something going on?
No. I'm trying not to chew into the microphone.
Oh. John is eating buffalo blue cheese combos, everyone.
Yep.
But anyway, the scene where he first is leaving Anna Pascal's place, the bakery.
Yep.
And he goes outside and the voice is, I don't remember saying something to him. And then he screams at the sky. He's like, shut up! Because he still doesn't know what's going on. And the voice says, Harold cursed the heavens in futility at his problems. He's like, no, I'm yelling at you stupid voice.
Yeah.
That's one thing that surprised me about this movie, is that it is more of a drama than just an outright Talladega Nights Anchorman level Will Ferrell comedy.
Yeah.
Because, honestly, if this movie was made now, and Will Ferrell was at the reins of it, or I don't know, any of his people were at the reins of this movie, I would see it being told as Will Ferrell's voice is being, or life is being narrated to him by a voice. He found the author, and this is what he did. I need you to say that I win the lottery and I become this huge billionaire kind of thing, where he just goes off the handles and he's like forcing this author to write this crazy story of his life until it gets so big that it falls apart or something stupid.
I mean,
I very much like this story,
too.
but I could have seen it going in that route based on what I know now about a lot of Will Ferrell's movies and stuff. Not to shit on him, but it's just some of the movies aren't for me.
Yeah.
Whereas this one obviously became my favorite, and it's kind of atypical for I almost said a Will Ferrell movie. This one and Everything Must Go.
I was gonna say it has a very Everything Must Go feel to it because I have actually seen that one.
I haven't seen that one.
That I think you might enjoy. If you like this one, I think you'll enjoy Everything Must Go.
Notorious B.I.G.'s kid is in it, though. He's the black kid.
Huh.
Chris Wallace Jr.? I think it's Chris Wallace Jr.
I do not know. You've got IMDb right there.
No.
But no, I was thinking, too, it's like, I'm not the biggest fan of Will Ferrell's comedy. I did not really care for Talladega Nights. I have no desire to see Step Brothers.
You haven't even seen Step Brothers?
No.
You asshole. Now we got to watch that one for this.
I've got no desire to.
Well, now I'm going to make it so at the end of the summer. We've got a lot of guest episodes coming up, but Step Brothers is coming.
Well, we've got a lot of guests that we want to record with, but
right.
Whether or not
we have not scheduled any of them.
No, we have not. Anyways, I mean, like, I like Elf. Love Elf.
That's just because you like the MCU. Jon Favreau directed that one.
I did not know. Did you know Jon Favreau was in Daredevil?
Yeah, he's the other lawyer.
I fucking saw a clip from it the other day. I'm like, holy shit, Jon Favreau's in Daredevil.
Less fat in that movie, actually.
A lot younger, too. Anyways, but no, I really like Will... Fuck, I almost said Will Smith. Thanks. I really like Will Ferrell in... I really like Will Ferrell in more dramatic roles, even if it's like a dramedy role. I like him either like that or I like him in small doses where he's not the main character.
Right.
Like in, I think it was The Other Guys where he's the boss at the mattress store that one of them ends up working at. Or is that a different movie?
He might become the boss at a mattress store, but I like that movie where him and
Mark
Wahlberg
no, not
cops.
The Other Guys, not The Other Guys. What the fuck movie am I thinking of where he's the boss at a mattress store? Because he's not a main character. I forgot The Other Guys was.
That's the Mark Wahlberg movie. That one's a very good movie. That's
a good Will Ferrell movie that I enjoy. Fuck. Anyways, there's one where he's like a boss at a mattress store that one of the characters ends up working at for a while.
Okay.
And I thought he was pretty great in that part. But no, beyond that, I mean, like, I don't know. I'm not the biggest Will Ferrell fan out there, but
Will Ferrell's humor it's hit and miss for me at this point now, where like some of his over the top stuff I don't think is funny unless it's like really characterized. Like if he's okay, I'm sure you haven't seen Eastbound and Down.
No.
The Danny McBride series on HBO.
Nope.
He plays a car salesman character who's got like shoulder length white feathered hair.
Okay.
He's just a total fucking weirdo. He like owns this like plantation where he has like not Asian slaves, but he has slaves that he makes look like geishas, but they're like white people.
Okay.
He's just this crazy, insane weirdo, but he's hilarious in that show. And then if I watch like Get Hard, he's like playing a normal guy who's
Loud
being
obnoxious.
outrageous and obnoxious, and that doesn't make me laugh nearly as much.
Yeah.
Where I almost kind of see through it, and it's like, oh, you're riffing right now, and this is the section that they used in the movie because they thought it was funny.
Yeah. I know what you mean. Yeah.
Right.
Just like,
but
Will Ferrell's comedy is being loud.
At this point it is, it feels like, because movies like Elf did so well.
Yeah.
Because he was
supposed to basically
kind
be
of
a
original
child.
somewhat. Right, yeah.
An excitable child.
But, yeah, this movie because I would almost call this more of a, I don't know, would you call this a drama or a comedy? I mean, it's obvious a mix of both, but what would you say is more abundant?
I would say it's closer to a drama.
Okay.
Like if we're putting it like on a scale of 1 to 10, where 10 is dramatic, 1 is comedic, I would put it at like a 7.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. And then it gives him more of an opportunity to be funny in a way that's like situational and more so witty in writing.
And realistic.
Right. Where his performance does need to capture like what makes it funny, but it's not outrageous and ridiculous.
Yeah, and like when the scene you mentioned where he like yells up at the voice for it when he leaves the shop.
Right.
He's yelling because he's angry and frustrated at like essentially God at that time, essentially God.
Right.
Whereas in like, yeah, and a lot of the other things, like any mild inconvenience basically is like
if he stubbed his toe,
loud
he'd be
and
angry.
screamy and.
But yeah, this movie kind of really showed me that like Will Ferrell is a good actor in general.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like he can pull off a like serious type role and stuff. But he's still funny nonetheless.
Yeah.
Because this movie is funny. I mean, like a lot of the humor parts are what make me enjoy it because I'm a huge fan of comedy in the first place, but
yeah.
The story of this movie is what really gets me and his transformation and stuff.
From mild-mannered to...
And he's still mild-mannered. He's just more in touch with what he wants at that point.
He's actually living his life more to its fullest than before. Do we want to spoil the ending and the...
Let's talk about that in a minute, because we'll talk about the way the author writes the story.
Yeah, we've
Karen
barely touched
Eiffel.
on... Yeah.
So yeah, I actually want to move to that. Let's talk about Karen Eiffel and her relationship with Queen Latifah's character Penny, the assistant, and her relationship with Harold, and even Hilbert, which is kind of interesting too.
Yeah,
because it's subtly referenced that Professor Hilbert really loves Karen Eiffel's work. Yep. And he's written her letters about how much he enjoys her work. He actually taught a class on her work. And then, like, towards the end of the movie, when Harold actually meets her...
That's kind of the big twist, is that Harold is not just a book character.
Right. He's actually real.
He's a human being in the same world as the author who is writing the exact story about his life.
It's almost kind of like that movie, The Crow, or The Raven, where... John Cusack is playing Edgar Allan Poe, and all of his murders are coming to life. It's kind of like that in a way, but there's not some serial killer who's making that shit happen.
See, I was thinking more like The Truman Show.
Oh.
That was the closer one that I got, where...
But everyone knew that his life was a movie.
But
or a show,
didn't.
I should say. But
it's kind of the inverse of The Truman Show, where everybody knows it's fake, except the character... Whereas in this, the character is like, I'm a real person, but the author is unaware of the fact that that's a real person that she just happens to be writing exactly about.
That's what makes him so afraid of his imminent death.
Yes.
So, but anyway, when he finally meets her, he says, yeah, he's a big fan of your work, or he loves your work, and she says, I love his letters, which is kind of cool that she does acknowledge that she knows who he is also.
When earlier on, too, like, she'd gotten a letter. She's like, I don't know why people write these. I don't write back.
Right. I never write back to my letters. But it does show that she does appreciate maybe certain people.
Yes.
Who are worthy of her admiration anyway.
Yes.
But, yeah, let's talk about her a little bit. What did you think of Emma Thompson's character and performance?
I really liked... that character, because like it almost seemed like she was a very self-destructive person. Because Queen Latifah's character was constantly trying to get her to quit smoking, to like just sit down and write the damn story instead of being like the artsy, like I need to go find my inspiration somewhere type of deal. Which and excuse me. Just kind of her, because she doesn't change much until the end of the movie. Like she's steadfastly in her way, like, and throughout, like, you know, she's picturing like, you know, various ways people can die, because she's trying to figure out how she's going to kill off Harold Crick in her book.
Right. At this point in the movie, by the way, she started writing the book 10 years prior. And so now she's written pretty much all of the book except for the part where Harold dies. So that's why Harold does hear his imminent death is upon him.
Yeah.
It's because she's gotten to that part and she can't write any further than that because she doesn't know how to kill him.
Was that what was implied? Like, I just thought like she had this writer's block for about 10 years, and that's why she hadn't really put anything out.
In that interview, she's told that she hasn't written the book yet. She's started writing the book.
Right, because she's talking about it, and then he said that interview was 10 years old. Right. Damn, that's a hell of a writer's block.
Well, that's what I'm saying. She's been writing it for 10 years, and then who knows what she got to that point. It could have been 2 years in, could have been 8 years in.
Yeah. So, but no, and then like, I also thought it was interesting how like, when Harold finds out she's real, like he recognizes her from the interview, and he's like, that's the narrator. That is who is narrating my life,
right? For
sure. At which point, Dustin Hoffman's character had deduced that he was in a comedy, but then he's like, "Oh, she's writing it? You're fucked," because every character she writes always dies.
Right.
So he's panicking, like trying to find a way to contact her, and eventually finds her number through the IRS when she got audited years earlier. But I liked when he called and she typed like the phone rings and then her phone rang.
Right.
And then she like types it again, it rings again. And then she waits a long time and types it again, it rings again.
Right. It really that moment illustrates the rules of how this whole, call it magic, call it whatever you want, how it works.
Which was very important for the ending.
Right.
When she started to type out that he died, but stopped halfway through the word. Like she hadn't finished the fact that, because like I think they did the same thing with the phone. She typed like it rang, or it like she started to type it, nothing happened, and then she finished typing it. As soon as she finished typing rang, it happened.
Right. And also the fact that well, she had Harold finally met her.
Yes.
And
she freaked the fuck out.
Well, yes, she did. And he said, "So now that you know that I'm real, you're not going to write that I've died, right?" And she's like, "Well," she kind of stammered. She was a little nervous. And then Harold's like, "You haven't written it, right?" And she's like, I wrote an outline." And neither of them really knew what that meant. But at this point, having seen that phone scene, the audience would kind of know, well, obviously nothing's set in stone because it hasn't happened yet.
Because it hasn't been typed yet.
Correct. But the fact that she wrote an outline,
it's still possible that
it could happen.
And then, so she didn't want him to see what she had, decided.
Well, it wasn't really that. It was just
that
I guess she was more so freaked out that this is at all possible anyway. Yeah. I mean, she said she's written 8 other books about characters that she's killed off now, so maybe even that's going through her mind in this moment.
That she's killed 8 actual other people.
Which they do address in the movie, which is a good scene also.
Her freaking out about that? Or
when she's laying on the desk, because she's busted up all the shit in their like big-ass empty room where she just types the book. She's flipped over her typewriter in her desk, and now she's laying on another desk in the other room, and she, is waxing poetically to Queen Latifah's character about the other people she's killed, saying the way she's done it. She killed a teacher the day before summer vacation. How cruel is that? Or she killed a construction worker with a heart attack in the middle of traffic. And she's trying to remember the lives those people lived, and she's kind of putting herself through their lives, seeing it through their eyes, just how cruel she's been to other people, which is a kind of cool parallelism to how self-destructive she is.
Yep.
So she doesn't care about her life, and not that she doesn't care about these people's lives, but she writes these tragedies, and when you have such a self-destructive life, you see how it impacts the people around you, the people you are quote-unquote close to, which would be characters she's writing in her own books.
Yeah, and I think it also gives her, basically, I think basically I was about to basically restate just about the same stuff that you did. So,
Maybe you could say it gracefully.
Well, I mean, I was going to say
it's
going off of that, like, yeah, she's self-destructive, but now is the first time she's reflecting on that self-destruction, similar to how Harold, I mean, in a very different way, was living a self-destructive life because it just wasn't going anywhere. He was spinning his wheels, but he didn't care.
Right.
He just was like floating through his days, and that was it.
Mm-hmm.
And in a sense, that's self-destructive. Where then you have Karen Eiffel on the other end, kind of doing whatever she wants, and she's working the career that she wants to. She's doing the things that she wants to, and she's writing these books that mean a lot to her. But like, it's also not. It doesn't seem to necessarily be bringing her happiness as well either. Writing these tragedies,
right?
And now that she's reflecting on the fact that maybe I've actually killed people with these tragedies, like 8 other actual human beings, since Harold Crick was real. What's keeping those other 8 people from having been real?
Right.
And so she's reflecting on, is this the kind of life that she wants to continue to lead?
Right. And I didn't pick up on that until recently either. The last few times I've seen it, where I actually start to really analyze her character development in the movie.
Yeah.
Because I kind of just think of her as the author of the story, but she's not. She's still a character in this movie overall.
Yeah. She's not some omniscient character.
Right. And I don't know if that might be an interesting thing for other people who have seen this movie. I'm curious if they kind of thought of it as the same way at first. But to be fair, I also saw this movie when I was 14 for the first time. Mm-hmm. So I didn't necessarily grasp all the existential stuff and all like the life lessons in it. I just kind of liked it for the story, and maybe some other reasons that I didn't understand why.
Yeah.
But I've always enjoyed this movie. And then having watched it many, many times, sometimes years between each viewing, it's like, oh, I didn't pick up on that, or I didn't even think of that before, because, you stupid when you're 14.
Yeah. Yeah, that's pretty accurate.
And you think everything's dramatic, so anything semi-dramatic is interesting to you. That's probably why the Twilight movies did so good.
Yeah.
You know what? We talked before the podcast about how we have a hard time extending these bad boys. We got 51 minutes out of that.
See? It's just, I don't know. Sometimes you need something with a tad bit more substance. Like, what we do in the shadows is great. There's not a whole lot of substance to it to talk about.
Hey, Taika Waititi would not tolerate that statement. But
I mean, I don't know. I think comparatively, I don't think What We Do in the Shadows has as much to say as like this movie does. I love What We Do in the Shadows, and I'm not saying every movie needs to have that much to say. Right. I'm saying comparatively, this has more to say about the human condition than What We Do in the Shadows, which is supposed to be making fun of vampires.
Right. And to be honest, like, the message, it's not shallow, but it's something you hear a lot. It's like, live the life you want to live. But they tell that, like, they give you that lesson in a very interesting and fun, creative type of way.
Yes.
It's not just like a self-help book that solves the person's problem or whatever.
It's not one of those where it's like, oh, you have some terminal disease, and it's like, fuck, I wasted my life. It was like, he realized that, like you said, in a more unique way. It's basically the same thing. Mm-hmm. He got the news that he's going to die.
Right.
But, how that happened and how he goes about solving that.
Right. And then, like, the use of literature to solve it also is really neat.
So, like, it plays off that trope, but in such an interesting way that it's like, okay, I haven't seen this before.
Now let's talk about the way she does right at the end of the book.
Yes.
So, one day, Karen Eiffel, through happenstance, she's out at a local market buying cigarettes, and she sees a guy spill a bunch of apples onto the street. All of a sudden, the idea comes to her on how to kill Harold Crick. She's not met him at this point.
Important note about the apples.
Yes.
Is throughout the beginning, he like, Harold eats apples like throughout the beginning as part of like his daily routine. He's always running late to the bus with an apple in his mouth.
Right.
And then moving on.
Right. So that's kind of what really ties it in for her when she sees these apples roll into the street and stuff. Now, so she gets the idea one day. She knows how to kill him. She's written the outline on the bus. Mm-hmm. And around that time is when Harold notices, Harold discovers that she's his author. And he, through use of his IRS agent resources, finds her address because she's kind of a recluse. But he does realize she must be in town for her to know all the bus schedules and stuff like that and his environment.
Yeah.
So he uses that knowledge to track her down, and he finally meets her. He then finds out that she has written the outline for his death. And, she gives him a copy of it to read for himself. Mm-hmm. And he can't really bring himself to read it, so he hands it off to Professor Hilbert to read. Just because, it's too freaky for him. And then Professor Hilbert reads it, and he tells Harold that he has to die.
Yeah.
This is the most important book she's ever written. No other death that he could have will be nearly as meaningful or as important for himself even. Because he brings up the fact, listen, you could die 20 years from now, but it could be choking on a mint. It could be, an airplane explodes, whatever. That's not the example he uses. But it would be something really, for lack of a better word, lame. But this would be so meaningful and so...
Poetic.
Poetic, yes. That's what he says. And that's kind of a really interesting point, because after that, Harold does take the time to read the book, and he reads
on the bus.
Yeah, for like 12 hours. He reads this ginormous book. It's like 3 inches thick of standard computer paper.
I was going to say, you've got a copy of it there. It was probably about that thick.
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
So Stephen King's It was about that long.
Right. Hundreds of pages. He reads in one ride on the bus. He then meets up with Karen Eiffel, who tries to tell him, look, I'll change it. But he says, listen, your book is amazing. I love it. I really like the part about the guitars. I think you should write your book the way it is. Which I think is a really interesting moment. And I think it's almost, I think Harold kind of finally sees his life that... I've made this life change. I've now done good by my life, as seen in this book anyway. Yeah. And that now he sees obligation to end his life. Not because it's just a way for him to die, but because there's someone else's life at stake in this story. Yeah. Because now life means more to him, which is why he would sacrifice himself for a child. Yes. Which is spoiler alert. The end of the movie happens where he's back on his schedule, but because his clock shut down, Jesus Christ,
his
wristwatch shuts down earlier in the movie. When he asked someone the time, they gave him a time that was 3 minutes off.
Yep, 3 minutes faster than his watch.
Right, so he arrives at his normal bus stop that he always takes for work early, so he's there in time for when the bus pulls up. To almost hit a kid who's fallen off his bike in the middle of the street, and Harold has enough time to get in front of the bus, pull the kid out of the way, and then the bus hits him, and that's how Harold dies.
Now, the bus driver and the kid that we mentioned earlier in the podcast and didn't bring up again, same way they do it in the movie. Those two.
Right. She's driving the bus that kills Harold Crick, and the kid falls off his bike in front of the bus. By the way, this kid's a fucking dick. He first of all rides in the stream of the water, which gets water splashed on that lady's legs, so she loses the typist job. Yep. And then she has to become a bus driver, and that kid jumps off this is in a daydream, he jumps off the curb in front of the bus, which pushes Karen Eiffel off the road into the water, which only happened in a daydream.
And the kid just keeps on riding.
Right. With no regards to anyone else, he doesn't install any rear view mirrors on the bike handles.
He should have heard that car crash behind him.
That did not happen.
It didn't happen.
But
geez, and then he gets a guy hit by a bus.
Right.
That kid's dad needs to take his bike away from him.
Right. He's gifted the bike at the beginning of the movie, but he should be grounded.
Yeah. Or
At the very
arrested,
least.
possibly. It's a menace to society.
So a question that Dylan asked me when I did his podcast that I thought was interesting was, by the way, the actual ending of the movie is that when Karen is about to write that, and so it was, Harold Crick was dead, she stops at Harold Crick was dead, and she doesn't finish the AD period because she can't bring herself to really kill Harold. So she instead, right, because she knows him, and she knows that he was willing to face his own death in order for her to write an amazing book and also to save a kid's life, which he doesn't strictly say because it's a cool reveal for the end of the movie.
Yes.
However, she decides not to do it because she can't bring herself to do it, and she instead writes that when Harold was hit, that a piece of his wristwatch, a metal piece of his wristwatch, got embedded into his wrist, which actually stopped his artery from bleeding out, so it gave him just enough time for the doctors to patch him up and stop the blood leakage.
Yep.
Which is also a cool, poetic way to end the movie.
Yes.
Now, how would you have ended the movie? Do you like that way? Or do you think the movie would have been just as good, if not better, if he actually would have died?
I think it could have gone either way, and I would have been satisfied with either ending.
Really?
Yes.
Even if there was no wrap-up with Anna or anything like that?
Because we were told that, well, for one, we're expecting it the whole movie. It's like, how is he supposed to die? Mm-hmm. And yeah, I think it would have worked either way. We would have seen Anna probably at his funeral.
Right.
Probably would have seen Karen Eiffel, Professor Hilbert. They all would have been there. Well, maybe not Professor Hilbert.
I was just gonna say he's kind of a little bit of a reserved dick, but he might care enough to show up.
Maybe.
He might send flowers. He probably wouldn't show up.
50-50 for Professor Hilbert, but I think Karen Eiffel would have been there. Maggie Gyllenhaal would have been there. Mm-hmm. So I think you would have gotten closure there. So I think you would have gotten the wrap up for that as well.
Right.
But yeah, because we were told it's like, this isn't, this is important. This book will be fantastic and amazing if it's written this way. And because he was willing to let that happen. Mm-hmm. Not in a suicidal way, but like you mentioned earlier, sacrificial in a sacrificial way. He's like, I understand what a good life is now. Mm-hmm.
What it means to live your life.
Yeah. And this book, this is your life, is writing these books. Mm-hmm. So, and he didn't want to take that from her, so I could have seen it ending either direction. It would have been acceptable for me either way.
Right. And talking about how big this book would have possibly been for her career, since it took her 10 years to write it and she had such a hard time trying to figure out a way to kill off Harold, it kind of also informs that, and then also with Professor Hilbert saying how important this book is.
Yeah.
It kind of does inform just how interesting Harold's transition from the boring and mundane into someone who enjoys life is. It's a good message for people to not just live your life by any means, but to live your life by means that make you happy.
Yes.
So that's the important message that it brings to you. So I think that's kind of an interesting thing also, that it's taken her 10 years to write such a specific and more so interesting and in-depth look into oneself type of book. Yeah. And then to also kill someone who's done all that, to kill someone who's realized the virtues of being alive, and it still be a good book. It would be really hard to do.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
So,
well, and I kind of like to think too that, obviously everything up to that point. Well, no. I like to think that the entire movie is the book, and the reason I say that is obviously you notice she narrates only specific sections.
Correct. Like
Harold Crick goes about his life without it being narrated at points. Mm-hmm. So I like to end, but at the end, Karen Eiffel mentions that, she changed the ending. He doesn't die, all that stuff. And then she's like, I'm sending it back to my publishers. I'm going to take time to, change it so that everything flows and fits wherein he wouldn't die.
Right.
So to me, like the whole movie, including him meeting her and like him freaking out at the voice in the heavens,
Oh, you think that's part of
is
her
in
rewrite?
the book.
Oh, okay, that's interesting.
That was kind of how I interpreted the end. Is we're watching the final product. This is the book that she sent off
To finally be published and
Yes.
stuff. Okay, that's an interesting thought. So you think she wrote in the fact that Harold found whoever was writing his story?
Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting. I didn't think about that necessarily. But
Typically, whenever there's like a book at the end of something, and they're like, "Oh, this is the, this," and it's been important, like for this, or like with, and they kind of do it in like the, not the Hobbit, Lord of the,
it's
Lord
the
of the
Hobbit,
Rings.
where
Well,
Bilbo
at the
comes
end of,
back and writes the Hobbit.
at the end of Lord of the Rings, when Sam picks up the Hobbit and adds and the Lord of the Rings, and he like Sam's the one who writes what happened from Lord of the Rings. Mm-hmm. So like to me, that's
He'd
like
be a horrible author for Lord of the Rings. It's only through his perspective. He was with Frodo the whole fucking time.
anyways.
Sorry.
But yeah, so to me, that's that sort of a thing. It's like when something like the book of it's like here's this book that's very similar to what we did comes out. It's like to me that book is what we're watching.
Okay, that's an interesting thought. I never really thought of it that way so much, as just so much of they're writing their version of events.
Yeah.
For whoever they interact with from that point on at that movie. Mm-hmm. But that's a neat thought, especially with this movie specifically, because there are some moments in the movie where you're like, why was that written in there? Like the whole when Harold is looking for Karen Eiffel, you hear her narrating him looking for Karen Eiffel.
Yeah.
Because he's saying, or she's saying rather, that he's looking for payphones, and there's a guy at the payphone determined to find his daughter in Florida, whatever. But he remembers that there was a set of payphones in the subway, and one was gross, and one didn't work. And then he finally found the one that worked, and then the phone rang.
And that's why.
So, but I'm saying that's kind of a weird plot hole. Why was she writing that in the first place? However, if it's part of the rewrite to how he's not going to die, that kind of makes sense in that regard.
Well, then it also somewhat explains kind of the magical, quote unquote, parts of it, like her typing in the phone rang and then it rings, and then her typing it again instead of the regular pace for a phone ringing.
Right.
It's dependent on her typing that on the typewriter.
Correct.
So that kind of also explains that sort of a thing too.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah. It's definitely an interesting movie, and it's definitely worth a few watches. Not to say like it's not good enough where you won't understand it the first time. Just
it makes sense.
The whole movie makes sense the first time you watch it. It just becomes more in depth and interesting with several watches. It's like a fine wine, Jonathan.
It's the sort of thing where you pick up the smaller details the more you watch it.
And it starts to inform even more about the characters, and even more about the story, and even more about the literary devices that they use in the movie.
Yeah. So yeah, I really enjoyed this one. This was
a good fucking movie, John.
This was an excellent suggestion.
Yeah.
Probably up there as one of the most interesting ones we've watched for this podcast.
Oh, really?
I think, yeah.
Where would you rate it on movies you've seen overall? Top 100?
Fuck, man, I don't know.
Like anyone can list 100 movies they've seen.
I mean, here's the thing: I can knock out a fifth of that list just using Marvel movies. So
that's true. Jesus Christ. But
so go ahead. Sorry,
I was just gonna say. So, how about we do it this way? On a scale of 1 to 10, from fuck this movie or
I'd give it an 8.
See this movie right now. What would you put it at?
I'd give it an 8.
An 8?
Yes.
Wow, that's higher than I thought you'd give it.
No, yeah, I'd give it an 8.
Nice. Yeah, that's awesome. I'm just happy with that rating. I'm happy that when I tell people about this movie, that other people enjoy it, and that it's not just some kind of like, oh, you like this romantic comedy, even though it's not really romantic comedy.
Yeah, this is not a rom-com.
Right. But I'm glad it's not that type of movie. Like, you like that type of thing or whatever.
Everybody let people like what they like. That's kind of my opinion.
So, what do you think about the movie Avatar then?
You can like it. I dislike it intensely.
Is it
Also,
intrinsically bad?
Yeah, I think so.
You think so?
Yeah.
Thank you.
And you think it's not.
I just think it's not
Here's
horrible.
the thing. Here's the thing. Good and bad are opinions.
Ah, there it is. All right. Just wanted to make you say that Avatar has the potential to be good in someone else's eyes.
Yeah, no, absolutely. They're wrong, but no, as I tweeted out last night about the Game of Thrones finale, which I enjoyed, but
Was that the actual finale?
the show was done last night.
Oh, okay. I'm behind 2 seasons. I'll rewatch them. I wanted to be able to binge it all though. So
I tweeted first that I enjoyed the episode, and then a little while later, because I made the mistake of continuing to be on Twitter and seeing everybody shit all over the episode in this entire season. And there would be people who would say they enjoyed it, and then they'd get shouted down by people who hated it. It's like it's just a TV show or it's just a movie.
Right.
Let people like the shit that they like, and let people dislike the shit they dislike. Just don't be dicks about it. Just let people have different opinions and different tastes. I liked this season of Game of Thrones. I thought the ending was good. I liked Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice. So,
now, where do you sit politically, John? let's add an hour and 10 minutes bring politics into this.
I mean, do you want my opinion of our current president?
No, let's not worry about that right now.
You don't want to bring this up?
I want your opinion on the people who voted for him, John. That's what I'm getting at. Are people really entitled to their own opinion in your eyes? What do you think?
People are entitled to their opinion. Their opinion might be stupid, but they're entitled to their opinion.
All right, don't worry. We're not getting into politics.
You can have the opinion that, I don't fucking know, rhubarb is terrible. It's a stupid opinion, but you're allowed to have it. Sorry, you had the rhubarb shit out there, so that was
brownies. They're the jam.
They're very tasty. I love rhubarb. That's all I'm going to say is I love rhubarb.
There are many political podcasts. There are many movie podcasts. We could be the first political movie podcast. Not talking about movies involving politics. However, we could be a movie or a podcast talking about movies that cycle into politics for the last 5 or 10 minutes.
This next week's podcast, we're going to talk about Stranger Things and Alabama's abortion laws.
No, let's not get into that. Let's get into Georgia's abortion laws. That actually has to do with movies, because almost every movie now is filmed in Georgia.
I mean, yeah, if we want to somehow find the intersection between politics and movies, yes, we can talk about Georgia's abortion laws. They're bad. They're very bad. So are Alabama's.
That was a goofy argument on Facebook. I follow this page called Movie Set Memes.
Okay.
And someone posted a meme about the abortion laws, and a bunch of people were getting upset in the comments, like, Jesus Christ, can we not have politics involved here? This is supposed to be about movies. Someone said, almost all movies are filmed in Georgia, so doesn't it matter? It's like, yeah, but none of those people live in Georgia. They live in LA and then fly out to Georgia to film for 6 months. But just the idea that they're talking about politics on a movie set page is stupid.
Oh.
So let's not talk about politics on a movie podcast.
Okay. No, I'm
not that I'm right side or left side, whatever. I tend to lean more Democratic, but some of the overly liberal stuff can be a little ridiculous to me. I'm not even talking about abortion right now. I'm just talking generalized. Jesus Christ, I've talked myself into a hole I don't know how to get out.
It's real easy. You just cut all this shit out.
Nah, I'll leave it.
Anyways.
I'll let people inform their opinions about me, John.
Alabama, Georgia, knock it the fuck off.
And if you would love to talk politics, please go to John's Twitter page at Rosendoom2.
Please don't do that. I'll have to make a new Twitter, and I don't really want to do that.
Well, then you'd have to make it just at Rosendoom, and who would even follow that page?
Yeah. Or I'll just start blocking people. I guess that works too. It's like, and blocked, and blocked, and blocked.
Hey, I've looked at our Instagram and Twitter. We have maybe 10 followers
for the podcast, yeah.
My friend Jordan has his podcast that he's only recorded 2 episodes, hasn't released it, has 40 fucking followers on Instagram.
So if, Jordan, if you're listening to this, please redirect some of that our way.
Right. Could you plug us, please, in the first episode or 2? No, but that is the friend who we may have on for the Godfather podcast soon.
At some point soon.
At some point, yeah. It could be literally whenever. We don't fucking know.
Is he in town?
No, he's still living in Chicago, but it's summer vacation and he's graduated now. I don't know when his lease is up. I don't know if he's coming back home. I don't know if he's staying in Chicago. I'm not sure yet. So,
Well, we just have to get in contact with him. But
right.
now for the most important part, what movie are we doing next week?
Yeah, hey, buddy, I'm looking it up, okay?
I know.
Don't you yell at me.
That's why I mentioned it into the microphone, because funny fact, this is not a video podcast.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
So what kind of movie are we feeling for next week?
Next week, let's see. We did Men in Black. We've done Stranger Than Fiction.
Well, let me pull up the list here.
Oh, by the way, you know what I just noticed is interesting? The title of this movie, it knows to put the period at the end of fiction, because the period is what defines whether or not something happens in Harold's life.
Yeah.
That's kind of interesting. Almost no movie title has a period at the end of it.
I can name one
Neat.
with an exclamation point.
Airplane?
Mother.
Oh, yeah.
Also airplane.
Is that an exclamation point, or is it like exclamation point question mark?
I think it's just an exclamation point.
Okay. Airplane's a good one. You want to do that one?
I've seen Airplane. Can we take the Barney movie off of there? We're not going to watch it.
We might watch it. That's a movie I've seen that you haven't, and it could be an interesting talk. Might only be a 10-minute podcast. That'll be a bonus episode. How about that?
A bonus episode, a real brief one.
We'll do that next. We'll do that one next Easter. How about that? Because the whole point of it's this rainbow egg.
Okay. Putting a pin in this. Next Easter, look out for the Barney movie, Magic Egg.
It's not called the Magic Egg. I can't remember what it's called, but it's a Barney movie where they have an egg. If anyone knows what I'm talking about, you really fucking know what I'm talking about, because you'll probably remember the movie.
You've got Cubanos there next to Chef.
You just want a Cubano. You just want roast pork and ham sandwich.
Was I the one who put that on there? Because I don't think that was me. You're the one typing out the list.
I don't know. We're sitting next to each other writing this.
That's true. I mean, I'd be cool eating Cubanos while we're while we talk about.
It might make an irritating podcast, but do you want to do Chef?
No, not really.
Do you want to go old school? The last couple movies were within the 90s and 2000s. Do you want to go back 40,
The last 3
50
movies
years?
were
What was the one we did before?
Men in Black, What We Do in the Shadows, and
Oh
Stranger
yeah, I
Than
forgot
Fiction.
about What We Do in the Shadows.
How I just mentioned it.
Do you want to do Planet of the Apes? Will you ever want to do Planet of the Apes?
I will eventually. It's just I don't know. It's not jumping out of me, and that's fun fact is a lot of why I have had difficulties with watching a lot of these movies. Like especially the ones where I'm like, yeah, I just never got around to it. It's like I'd like scroll through and I'd just be like, and then I just keep
it's
going.
not grabbing me.
Yeah, like it's weird. I have a harder time watching movies at home. Mm-hmm. Like I'm happy to go out to the theater. Like I'm dedicating this time.
Spend $3,000 going to each movie 3 times.
Look, I'll be honest. I don't really want to like look back at how much money I've spent at movie theaters.
It's too much.
It is too much, but I love the experience and I think it's worth every cent.
Especially since you don't have AMC A-List, which for $20 a month, you can go see 3 movies a week for free.
Please sponsor us, AMC.
Just please give John a fucking free account. He's spending too much.
Realistically, I mean, I was going to sign up for that and they're like...
You just decided you wanted to spend more money?
No. I was going to sign up for it, right? And when they were advertising it, they would always be like, and ask somebody how you can get credit for this movie. And so I went and asked, and they're like, well, you don't get reimbursed for the movie. I'm like, then what the hell do you mean get credit for the movie?
How do I do this?
Is it like some off of the $20?
No,
like,
see, you have to run out of the theater right then and there before the movie actually starts. Then you can get
oh,
credit
it's
for
like,
the movie.
hey, wait, hold on.
I haven't seen anything yet. Wait, did they like kind of start the audio while they were bringing up the production companies? Because that counts as the movie, okay?
Fuck. No, I'll get one eventually. Oh, do you have one?
I had it for a while, but
Did
I
it
dropped
charge
so
you?
I could pay
Did it
for
charge
editing.
you for the whole year? Right off the top?
No. It charges. Okay, it doesn't charge you like a sum amount right away,
Okay.
but you have to stay in it for 3 months.
Okay, so it charges you the $20 a month.
Right, but you're
Okay, because I was concerned the way it was laid out to me, which is part of the reason I didn't get it, was I had to pay for a year up front.
no.
That's what it looked like to me.
If you sign up for it, you're set in for 3 months. So it's going to cost you $60 no matter what, but over 3 months. And then after that, you can quit anytime you want.
Okay. These are just choices I make. I can quit whenever I want.
Correct.
God, no, I should really here's the thing.
What's
Molly needs to get one of her own because otherwise...
Yeah, that was the one thing. I had to pay for Kate's ticket then when we'd go. I'm like, God damn
here's
it.
the thing. You could theoretically... Couldn't you get 2 for that movie? It's like me and this other person?
No, they actually don't let you do that, which is interesting. So you can only...
So yeah, I would need Molly to get one too.
You could just, I guess, get a ticket for another movie at the exact same time and then just not go into that movie.
Fine, what's the closest movie you've got near this? Give me one of those. We're both going to see the same movie.
I mean, they wouldn't fucking know. Yeah, actually, that's kind of interesting. I might sign back up for that shit. And
if
also,
you work at AMC, please stop listening about 5 minutes ago.
For anyone who wants to get away with saving a few bucks, if you just buy your tickets on the app, you can say you're a child and then get the cheaper ticket and then just get your ticket at the kiosk where you don't have to actually talk to anyone. And then you'll have your ticket. You don't even have to rip off your stubs. I don't even do it because I don't want to get in trouble. But you could fucking do it.
Yeah, you could. Or say you're a senior.
It's actually cheaper for a child.
Yeah, makes sense. My poor mother one time went... What the fuck did she go to see? She went and saw Christopher Robin, the new Winnie the Pooh movie with Ewan McGregor.
I thought you were about to say with you. I was like, I didn't go. Sorry.
And she went to buy a ticket without even asking her anything. She didn't ask about it. She just went to buy a ticket. The person charged for the senior ticket.
I'd rather that, actually. I wish someone would have done that for me.
Oh.
I might just fucking put some crow's feet on my eyes, add a couple wrinkles, bring in a walker.
Do the...
I'll just look like Carl from Up.
Yeah, no, you'd probably look closer to him, yeah. I was gonna say do the Captain America makeup at the end of Endgame. Spoiler alert, but fuck you guys, the spoiler ban got lifted. So Captain America gets old, Iron Man dies.
He dies for now. He'll be back.
No. Robert Downey Jr. was done with it. Both of them
Mysterio just made it an illusion.
Both of them have been talking about being done since like before Age of Ultron.
Yeah.
So the fact that they stuck out this long is fucking fantastic.
Well, I mean, it's not just fantastic. It was written in their contract.
Well, no, because I think they re-upped around Age of Ultron. Because I remember, I remember them talking.
The last time we're re-upping.
Yeah, pretty much, and then they stuck around. Endgame ended beautifully. I loved Endgame.
I need this to pay off my private jet. I'm signing up for 3 more movies.
I mean, come on, fucking the first Avengers movie paid off all of their private jets if they wanted them. Probably.
Robert Downey Jr. was probably fine after the Shaggy fucking Dog, which came out before Iron Man.
Was he?
He's the villain in Shaggy Dog.
Oh, I know.
The Tim Allen Shaggy Dog.
Yeah.
Not the 1970s Shaggy DA or anything.
Yeah. Funny, or not funny, fun fact about the original Iron Man, Terrence Howard was the highest paid actor on that one, and he didn't appear again.
Yeah. Now he's the lowest paid actor in the MCU.
Because he wanted more money.
Right.
Same
with Edward Norton.
Yes. And they
Turns
didn't
out
realize...
he's a bit of a dick.
And fun fact, Disney didn't... Well, at that point, they weren't even Disney, but the MCU was just like, nah. And it was still basically... That was 2 movies. The first 2 movies. And they're like, nah, we're not going to pay you guys more for this. We'll get somebody else.
Right. Well, because they could find anyone else. They weren't like crazy high-profile movies that they are now.
That's true. You can't, like, at this point, you can't, like, take fucking Sebastian Stan out and recast him. Right. Be like, who the fuck is this guy?
We're pretty early on. We don't have a ton of money, so go fuck yourself. You're out of here.
Yeah.
Go work on Empire.
I mean, that's going well for Terrence Howard, so.
It's not going well for Jesse Smollett, I'll tell you that.
He kind of did that to himself. Whereas... I mean, you could see it that way for Terrence Howard in Iron Man 1. He was like, well, he did that to himself. But then he got Empire, so I think, he's okay.
I've heard Terrence Howard is a fucking asshole on set, though.
I have no idea. Did you hear he's trying to come up with his own math system, though?
All right. So what are we going to do next week, John?
Let's
wrap this up. We've been rambling quite a bit.
Shit, man. I don't know. What sounds good to you? Jiro Dreams of Sushi?
No. We could do... we could do Friday the 13th.
We could.
Well, is it summer enough yet? It's only the end of May.
It's
Mid-May.
still cold outside.
It's like cold.
It was like 50 something.
We live in the Midwest, everyone.
Yes.
Yeah, we live in Illinois. What of it?
Yeah, we were right there in the middle of that polar vortex when it hit negative 50.
All right. Why don't we just leave it open-ended for the podcast's sake? We'll figure it out. I'll contact Jordan maybe tonight, and then we can see if maybe we can get
if he wants to come in next Monday.
Whatchamacallit, the Godfather. Maybe I can even contact Dylan and we can do Reservoir Dogs.
We could contact Race and we could do Battleship. Yeah.
I don't know about that one, but we'll see. I'll talk to all three of those people tonight and start setting up a schedule. How about that?
That sounds good.
All right, so you're either getting Battleship, Godfather, Reservoir Dogs, or whatever fucking movie we come up with.
Here's the
couldn't
thing.
Think of one.
Those three that we mentioned, out of those three, I only don't own one of them, and it's Battleship.
And it's Reservoir Dogs.
No, my brother, Nick, you know who my brother is.
Yeah.
He was our guest on the Mortal Kombat Annihilation episode.
Yeah, that was like my least favorite episode. It just didn't flow well for some reason.
Probably Nick.
Just fucking
Hey,
around.
please keep listening, Nick. You're our only listener. And Andrew.
Yeah.
Shit. No, he got me the Quentin Tarantino.
Oh, the
20
box
years
set?
of Tarantino like Blu-ray box set that had everything up through Inglourious Bastards, and then I got Django Unchained and Hateful Eight on Blu-ray as well.
That's kind of crazy that he got you like that. He would have a box set already made before he was done making his 8 films.
It was 20 years of Tarantino. It
I
was
guess,
his
but
20th anniversary. Not.
It seems silly to do that when this guy's been saying I'm gonna make 8 films and I'm fucking out.
No. He's
Or
been
10?
saying 10.
Oh, 10. But still, isn't that kind of weird?
Dude, Hateful
like
Eight
you've
was
got
his
2
8th
more
film,
movies
and he's
coming
got
out, or
Once Upon a
4
Time in
more
Hollywood
movies at
coming
that
out later
point.
this year. Yeah, but no, they did. I mean, he's not the one who puts the box sets together.
I know, but still, you'd think a marketing team would be like, wait, he's making 10 movies. I guess they're just trying to take advantage of whatever you got.
Well, here's the thing: when he hits that 10 movie mark, and he actually stops,
box set.
there you go. No, what they should have done was what the Bond movie set did, where it had a space in there for when Spectre came out that you could add it to the.
Oh, really? They extended the box and then you could
so
just slide it in?
So you could add Spectre when it came out.
That's fucking hilarious.
Spectre, by the way, garbage.
That was the one with Christoph Waltz?
Yes.
I saw that one. And Batista.
What a fucking waste of Christoph Waltz's time.
I saw that movie without seeing any of the other Daniel Craig Bond movies.
Then, well, what did you think of Spectre? Let's just shove right along
Welcome
into
to the
next
Spectre podcast, everyone. Late to the show. No.
This is a
Fine,
special.
I guess. I didn't really know. I wasn't paying close attention.
See, now if you watch Casino Royale is great, Quantum of Solace is garbage, Skyfall is amazing, Spectre sucks, and my biggest gripe with Spectre, and they did it with Star Trek Into Darkness as well, when they're like, and all the press tours and everything, people are like, oh, Benedict Cumberbatch is Khan. Oh, Christoph Waltz is Blofeld. And both of them were like, no, we're totally new original characters. And then halfway through the movie, he's fucking Khan and he's fucking Blofeld. It's like,
Why'd you
why?
even pretend? All right. Well, that's the end of the podcast, everyone. On that note, we're going to jump out of here.
Yes.
We've talked about too many other movies. We actually hit a substantial amount of time on just our movie.
Yeah.
For the week.
And then we riffed for half an hour.
Bullshitted for half an hour, making this. It's almost the longest podcast we've done.
This is a meeting
I think
one.
we did an hour and 32 minutes, maybe. Was our longest one?
Yeah, I think that was the first Mortal Kombat one.
This one's an hour and 28 minutes.
Well, do you want to set the new record? We could sit here and riff for 4 more minutes, or
It just wouldn't be natural.
all right. Well, yeah. At that point, when you call it out like that, so follow the podcast on Twitter at LTTS Podcast, on Instagram at Late to the Podcast. I'm at Rosendoom2.
I'm at Jake_Lavoy. Don't forget that underscore, folks.
And yeah.
All right, peace out, fellas. We'll be back next week. Don't be late.